everybody. Welcome to another edition of Geezerology on YouTube. My name is Bob. Joining me today is Scott from the Sunshine State of Florida, our newest member, Bill, from the Eastern Seaboard State of Connecticut, and Dan from the eastern side of Missouri in St. Louis. Today, we're going to be talking about Jimi Hendrix's Band of Gypsys album, recorded live on January 1st, 1970 at the legendary Fillmore East in New York City. This was released on March 25th, 1970, 6 months prior to Hendrix's untimely death on September 18th, 1970. It was recorded with new bandmates Billy Cox on bass and drummer, songwriter, and vocalist Buddy Miles. The 6-song album went to number 5 on the US Billboard 200 album chart and was certified gold less than 2 months after its release. It's now certified double platinum, indicating album and CD sales in excess of 2 million copies. The album contained 4 new Hendrix songs and 2 compositions from Miles, and it marked a change in Hendrix's music to more of a funk rock sound. But we'll get into that later. So we're going to start this off with Scott. And Scott, it's my understanding that you are new to this album. And based on our previous conversations where we've talked about Hendrix stuff, you're kind of a casual listener to Hendrix and less than enthusiastic fan. So my question, with this being new music to you, did this batch of new Hendrix material move the needle for you in any direction?
Definitely. I really like this album. But and it's surprising. I really didn't expect to, because as you know, as I've talked about before, I'm generally not a fan of live albums, and I've just been a skeptical Hendrix fan all along. I have not been I don't know what we call it, a Hendrix hater or anti-Hendrix or anything like that. It's just that I've not been a swimmer of the tide with the general consensus that that everybody loved this guy, right? This one I liked a lot. And I like this better than the first 2 studio albums by the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Are You Experienced and Axis Bold to Love. I think this is a better Hendrix than those 2. I don't want to say that it's a better album or as good an album as Electric Ladyland, because you know how I felt about that. There were parts of Electric Ladyland that were just brilliant, and there were parts of Electric Ladyland that I thought were just not very good at all. So it's hard to compare that. If Electric Ladyland were a one single album, then it would have blown this away. But anyway, I'm digressing here. This is I love this thing. It seemed to me like Hendrix was much more focused on this record than anything that he did before, and I think that probably has a lot to do with the people who he is playing with here. Buddy Cox just seems to me to be a much stronger, better influence on Hendrix than the 2 guys. It's like all of a sudden here this is not strictly a Jimi Hendrix album. I don't think it's attributed as it's credited as a Jimi Hendrix solo album, I guess. But this is a much better band than he played with and with the Jimi Hendrix Experience, I believe. I don't know so much about Billy Cox versus Noel Redding as a bass player, but as far as Buddy Miles just seems to lend a vision to this album that Hendrix never had to play off of before, because this is as much of to me a Buddy Miles album as it is a Jimi Hendrix album. And it's great. The opening track, "Who Knows," which is I think Hendrix is the sole songwriter on this, but he uses Buddy Miles, especially Miles' vocals. They trade vocals on this song, and it's and Hendrix plays some fine guitar on this. Buddy Miles and Billy Cox's great rhythm section on a song. It's really good. It's a great opener on this album. And then we go into Machine Gun, which is I know this is a landmark Hendrix track. This is one of the tracks that a lot of people point to when they talk about the greatness of Jimi Hendrix. But this seems to me, for all the long jams that Hendrix has gone into before that I've heard before, which I've always felt were just kind of meandering and got boring, everything like this. This one has a pretty good focus to it, and again, I have to say that that's probably because Buddy Miles is there, supporting him and keeping him in check, so to speak. It just doesn't have those crazy excesses that that Hendrix tended to go off when he took off on these long ass jams that he used to do. Flip it over to side 2. The first track on side 2, "Changes." I know this later became a hit single for Buddy Miles. I guess he did a solo debut album just not too long after Band of Gypsys came out, and the lead track on that album was "Them Changes," which is the same song, and it became a hit song for him. This is a really nice performance of this song on here. And this the first time that the public heard this, since it came out before Buddy Miles' solo album, but probably so. But this is I like this. I like that song a lot. And now we're getting into the back 2/3 of the album, which is still pretty strong, but about this time, it's starting to feel a little redundant to me. "Power to Love" is another revisit of "Who Knows." It's just a different version of the same song, I think. And then "Message of Love" is a nice, tight Jimi Hendrix song, but nothing special. And I think it just kind of falls apart at the end. "We Gotta Live Together" gets a little loose. But I think what's going on there, where I think the album loses a little steam on the back 3 tracks. But that's probably more because I'm still not totally in tune with Jimi Hendrix's music here. And by the time we get to "Power to Love" and "Message of Love" and "We Gotta Live Together," it's like, oh, okay, I've heard what I needed to hear. Now we're just into retread material just to fill out the rest of the album, right? Yeah, I think this is really good. I was really surprised at how much I did like this album. And I had heard, like I said, I was very familiar with the 3 Jimi Hendrix Experience studio albums. I've been listening to those for decades, since they first came out. Never really studied them much, but I've listened to them. And I've heard a few of the posthumous Hendrix albums, some of the live, some of the studio ones, but this is definitely my favorite Jimi Hendrix album that I've ever heard. For the reasons I just mentioned. It just seems to be more focused, and he just has better support here than he normally had before, I think. This album really kind of made me a fan of Buddy Miles. I've always known of him, but what he did with what he did by helping Jimi Hendrix polish up his act, that alone makes me a Buddy Miles fan here. I noticed that Hendrix is the producer of this album, and this album was made basically to fulfill a contract or something, and it's not actually an album that Hendrix wanted to release. He didn't think that. He just put this band together, and he felt it was a rush job. I've been reading this, and he wasn't really happy with it. And Hendrix is listed as a producer of it. In fact, no, Hendrix is a producer of it, but the original production credit, Hendrix used a pseudonym called Heaven Research as a producer because he didn't want his name on it as a producer because he wasn't happy with it. And I have to believe that that's because Hendrix didn't have the time because he was facing a deadline or whatever, but he didn't have the time to go in and just start messing with it. like he did when he became the main producer of Electric Ladyland and drove off Chaz Chandler because he was just spending so much time and doing so much intricate work on it that Chaz Chandler just pulled his hair out and left. And I think that's probably what's going on here, is that Hendrix kind of disowned this record because he felt it was too raw and he didn't have enough time to put the polish on it that he felt he wanted to put on it. I think it's just a great, dirty, raw, organic Jimi Hendrix album. And there are a few raw spots in the production. The bottom it's really bottom heavy on these songs, but that's just because that's what you get when you're recording something live. And then obviously Hendrix didn't have time to go in and remix all that stuff and things like that because they had to get this thing out because of some lawsuit settlement or something. I'm not sure what that was all about. I like this album a lot. I started to say I love this album. I don't love this album. I haven't listened to it enough to love it. And not being predisposed to be in a Jimi Hendrix mood very often, I will probably not listen to it often enough to learn to love it. But as far as that goes, I like it a lot. So I'll just kind of leave you with that. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, you're welcome, Scott. So, Bill, it's my understanding that this is new to you also. So would you care to share your thoughts as a first-time listener to Band of Gypsys?
Yes, Bob, it is kind of the first time I had listened to it. And I probably not dissimilar to Scott, have had a fairly good grounding of Hendrix over the years. And a deep appreciation for his capabilities and certainly for his totemic importance. He is, if you think about rock and roll guitarists, he's, one or two or three that you would think of. And if you had to explain to somebody who had never heard this sort of music what was capable of being produced by one person with an electric guitar, this is the guy. So, to find him in a live environment is, really important. And I think, from my approach to this record is maybe different from you guys. So I did not listen to it until this most recent couple of weeks. And I had previously listened to live records that the Jimi Hendrix estate, I think it's Experience Hendrix or whatever it's called, it had put together over the last 20 years some very good live concert material, particularly from 1970. So, obviously when Jimmy died in September and this record, Band of Gypsys, came out in the first part of the year and was recorded in January, he was doing some touring subsequently from Band of Gypsys. And the band, which was, in essence, it's just the three musicians, the Gypsies band didn't last very long because Buddy Miles was replaced, again with Mitch Mitchell from The Experience. And the albums that I had heard, that I actually said, hey, this is, Hendrix live. This is incredible stuff out in Berkeley. And I think there's one called Hendrix in the West. And then there's another Fillmore album, which I found really, great stuff. What I found different with Band of Gypsys is that Buddy Miles is the catalyst for a different sound. So I think Scott was alluding to, the fact that it does not sound the same as the Hendrix psychedelic rocker of 68 and 69. This is a guy who is, looking at, a whole kind of funk blues combo. And, Buddy Miles, who I actually was familiar with, he was in Electric Flag. I mean, he knows how to play with guys who have a blues sensibility and a funky approach to things. But I had a problem with this album because of Miles, which is weird because, he is a good drummer. I don't think he is mixed into this. The sound is a little grating to me on a certain level, although his singing is great and it adds a lot of additional verve to the whole sound. I found that it was kind of a mixed bag. And I was trying to figure out how I could kind of take the drumming down in the mix and boost the bass and, focus on the guitar even more than was, the original production. So I think overall I was impressed with it. I think it's an important album. It was obviously important at the time because, until the estate was, kind of sorted out and things got put out back into the marketplace, this was really a good representational album of Hendrix live. And obviously, Scott mentioned Machine Gun. I mean, that song is everything you could expect and more. And it is, an eviscerating guitar workout and quite mind melding. And the Buddy Miles songs are good. I like them. I think they fit well. And Buddy, sings, as I said, great. He's complimentary to Hendrix, who's kind of a lower key, vocalist, who's, gets by a lot on his intonation and stuff like that. I don't think I would put this at the top of my Hendrix list, but I was impressed enough to say, it's a good record. It's an important record for sure. I probably wouldn't play it before playing live in Berkeley or something like that, as I mentioned before. That's
All
it.
right. Okay. Thanks, Bill. So, Dan, of the three guys, you are the one who's had this album in your wheelhouse since day one. So what are your thoughts of it back from the day, and what do you think of it today?
Well, that's true, Bob. I bought this about, maybe a year after it came out, maybe 71, and listened to it quite a bit on my low grade hi-fi in my college dorm room that first semester. And, for me at that time, the cut Machine Gun was sort of in my wheelhouse because with the extended solo and the sounds he was creating, to me, was like an extension of the psychedelic flavored stuff that he did on the first first three albums. And there's a little bit of some social comment in there, actually a lot with Vietnam and that. And I think now, and to revisit this, I had to go back. I haven't really listened to this from end to end in, more than 40 years. I think, definitely to echo a couple other earlier comments that Buddy Miles was a really positive addition. He brings his own songs to it. He doesn't help out with the vocals, but it's a good counterbalance where Hendrix doesn't have to carry the entire load, instrumentally or vocally. The only thing that got to me this time was I liked Buddy Miles when he and Jimmy were doing the call and response, but the part where he does that scat sing, I don't go for that too much. But the guitar work in Machine Gun and some of the others, it's just landmark stuff. But I believe this album, although it was, not I want to say hastily thrown together, but they didn't spend a lot of time post in the studio of cleaning this up. I think Hendrix and the reason Buddy Miles was with them, they were taking a turn into more funk and R&B. I really do. You can tell that from the rest of the other songs. And of course, it's just guesswork on our part. If Hendrix would have recorded in that style with studio wise after this, I tend to think he was. I think he was done with the psychedelic guitar player, the image and all that. And in a way, I think he was going back and celebrating some of his roots. You know, he did tour and play with the Isley Brothers early in his career in the Southern Circuit. And I think that shows here, particularly him with Buddy Miles. And yeah, Buddy Miles is a better drummer, I believe, than Mitch Mitchell. He fits this style a little bit better, more of a steady beat. And Billy Cox is he's a commendable bass player. He doesn't get too inventive, but you know, for this, he provides a solid bottom, so Hendrix can, you know, go down whichever off ramp he wants to, you know, stylistically. And little side note, Jimmy knew Billy Cox from their days in the Army together. Yes, they were both in the Army back in the early 60s. But yeah, upon review now, I think that I would tend to just revert back to the shorter songs like that, Them Changes, Message of Love, Machine Gun. I have to get into a really a certain state of mind to do that. I mean, but it is structured. It is lengthy. It's kind of a test of my patience, but there's a lot of sounds in there. I mean, they, you know, the orally, there is sounds of machine guns and explosions going off. And yeah, Hendrix is one of the few people that can sing and do a riff, or even sing over a riff and throw in a solo at the same time. So this LP, I glad I purchased at the time. And I think it kind of leads to what could have been, as far as Jimmy taking a different direction musically, because again, I think he was done with the psychedelic air stuff and wanted to show what he can do. And who knows, he may have went farther on and added more members, a horn section, who knows.
Thanks, Dan. So I'm just going to throw a few things in here real quickly. I, like Dan, purchased this album way back in the day, not long after it got released. I still own my original vinyl copy of it. Of the original albums released by Hendrix prior to his demise, I would list this as my second favorite, behind only the debut album, Are You Experienced? I liked the funk rock direction that this went. I really like the call and response singing that Hendrix and Miles did, particularly noted on the opening cut. Machine Gun goes without saying. I love that song. I like Them Changes. I've also got Buddy Miles' version of that on vinyl. So I really don't have much to say that hasn't already been said, other than I was really surprised to find you liking this as much as you did, Scott. It's not your typical thing. So
I was sitting here thinking that this is really weird that I'm sitting here out of the four of us and I gave the most glowing review of a Jimi Hendrix album.
I
know that I found that really, really surprising.
I'm going to say I like this. I like this album more than either of you three guys did, and that surprises me.
Well, like I said, it's my second favorite Hendrix album, so I rate it up there pretty highly.
Yeah,
I hadn't listened to it in a long time, so I had to refresh myself with it. I think there are some excesses on here, and even so, they even did.
It's Jimi Hendrix, of course there are excesses.
Yeah. But even with that, it's my understanding they did some trimming on some of these cuts to shorten them from the live jams and stuff they got into. So
they had to fit it into a 40-minute LP, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
so yeah. So there are some excesses. I agree with Dan on the scat singing. I thought that was a little over the top. But overall, I really loved this album. So anyway, we had overall fairly enthusiastic comments for Band of Gypsies. So anybody have anything they want to add before we bring this to a close?
Yeah, a couple of quick things. I just wanted to note that I was going through and looking at the timeline of the Jimi Hendrix discography not too long before we went on, and I was surprised to find out that that this is really the first time, you know, rewind to March 25th of 1970. This was the first time that that the public heard Jimi Hendrix live. See, I was thinking that, okay, we'd heard, you know, the Woodstock soundtrack and then the Monterey Pop soundtrack, but going back and checking that the Woodstock soundtrack came out after Band of Gypsys. The Monterey Pop soundtrack came out after Band of Gypsys. They all came out later in 1970. So this is the first time that the public heard Jimi Hendrix live. Which, yeah, I just thought it was interesting because those other things that we did here later were recorded before this, but they weren't released until after this. Also, Dee mentioned that you know, we wouldn't know if you know, it's just speculation what he might do in the studio after this because he died. Well, we do have some studio work. When he died, he left a lot of studio recordings that he was putting together another album when he died, and that later became I guess Cry of Love, which was a posthumous album that came out after that. That was some of those studio tracks he left behind, as was Rainbow Bridge. And I know Rainbow Bridge a little better than Cry of Love, but those two albums, Rainbow Bridge and Cry of Love, are closer lined up to what he was doing with Band of Gypsys than what he did with the Experience, with the psychedelic stuff with the Experience. But I just wanted to throw that out there just as a comment since Dee opened that door.
Yeah, I think, I mean, from my perspective too, I think if you look at what he did with the guitar and in the period that he did this, it's a very short period, 3 years plus, right, that he was in the public eye. And you contrast it. I mean, the guy I think about, it's interesting that Buddy Miles is in here because I think of Miles Davis. You think of somebody who actually had a whole series of different approaches to music using the same instrument and the same kind of imagination that goes in different directions and starts in a typical jazz fashion and then goes into bebop and then hard bop and then all kinds of rock improv stuff. I mean, Hendrix had all of that capability to go in any kind of direction, and it's astonishing that and a tragedy that it ended so quickly because you could see the only thing holding him back was his own time and his ability to focus. And of course, he was getting irked by all of both the crazy fandom, that viewed him as the psychedelic, god, and the business aspect that was, also driving him crazy. And all of that didn't help his mindset.
Yeah, we definitely have enough clues that that he had a lot of influences that he wanted to work on, and out once he got past the Jimi Hendrix Experience and the psychedelic influence, now he's moving into soul and funk, and he got a little bit later on some of those recordings he left behind. He was dabbling around with a little more jazzy things. Yeah, it's a shame that we didn't really see any of that really come to full flower. We just got little tastes of it, but never a full picture of what was about to happen.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for those very interesting perspectives, and thank you everybody for tuning in to us again. Please feel to check us out on YouTube and stay tuned and try to keep alert for our upcoming offerings. And again, from Kansas City, Missouri, I thank you very, very much for listening to us. And thanks, guys, for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.